The WoW Stratics Podcast, the official voice of a World of Warcraft Stratics fan site, wow.stratics.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the WoW Stratics Podcast, the bi-weekly podcast looking into recent events and content within the World of Warcraft and surrounding community. This week, we are somewhat less focused on just one central topic, but more of a free-form take on recent news and announcements that affect the game, released via social media and press releases from Blizzard Entertainment. So let's kick it off. This week, we only have just two men and one desire. That is, Sylar and the rest of the team unfortunately couldn't make it, but, the show must go on. My name's Mioni, I'm a writer for WoW Stratics, and this is Metro, also a writer for WoW Stratics. So Metro, what are we talking about today?
We're getting pretty close. We're getting pretty close to the WoD beta. You could feel it. You could smell it in the air. So today, what we're going to be looking at is just a bit of a recap on some of the most, I think we got about 7 big topics here that are, this is pretty big stuff. Not necessarily stuff that people have known about. And we're just going to give our, synopsis of it and then also our opinions. Now, unfortunately, as it's just the two of us, this one's probably going to be a little bit shorter, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So we might as well get right into it. The first thing that we're going to talk about here is the collector's edition and the price overall of the expansion, right? Which has gone up, if you're not aware, from $40 US to $50 US. Not really sure. What's the price in British pound?
That is $49.99 for the collector's edition and $39.99.
Right, so both have gone up, obviously, especially $10 US. It's kind of a big deal. People are saying, that's half the month subscription, a little bit even more than half. And then also with that, we've seen the 90 boost reaction thing and some other general points about like maybe the Hearthsteed. Just basically the fact that we just purchased. Let's talk about this, right? We just purchased an expansion that is not even like in alpha yet. You know what I mean?
That's right.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel comfortable?
Well, I do, because it's Blizzard and it's World of Warcraft. It's a game we all play. It's the game we all love. Like as soon as it came on the announcement, you were like me. You cannot lie about this. And there was so many million other people exactly the same. We had our finger hovering over the button to log into Battle.net to go there and just give them our money. Because we have seen, like from BlizzCon, the sort of information we're getting about that, we're all super hyped. And we've never been more hyped. Now we're getting little bits of information here and there, which we'll talk about later in the podcast. But personally, like the price point, I don't know. I don't feel it's too bad. A fellow friend of ours, who's a raider with you, Vicario, one day we'll get him on the podcast. But he actually mentioned quite an interesting fact. The boxed editions actually already costed the same amount. As far as I can tell, he's right about that.
Yeah. I don't have real confirmation. I was actually looking this up the other day because I didn't want to mention it and not have confirmation. But, he I don't see why he would lie about that. He claims he has a boxed edition of Wrath of the Lich King that was $50. So I don't remember. It's pretty reasonable, though, honestly.
Yeah, especially for a, AAA game, brand new on release day. I mean, you've got to remember you're paying for the quality that Blizzard ensures, and they haven't let us down this far. So personally, there may be people out there who say, "Oh, this extra $10," but you got to think about this. That's $10. That's what does that even mean to you? What do you spend $10 on? Sure, it's nearly like a month of subscription, but I don't know. Like, aren't you paying for a service that many other games and the competitors cannot beat?
And that's absolutely the case in my head. And like, there is I do not falter on this topic whatsoever. In terms of price, I would pay easily $60. I don't care, even if they upped it to $60, because let's recap MOP. You know what I mean? You have gotten so much out of Mists of Pandaria. It's just silly. Now, in the beginning, after Cataclysm, they did say that they wanted to introduce more content regularly. They smashed it. Home run, guaranteed. Grand slam on that topic. They released patches. I remember, if you recall as well, we had just leveled to 90. It was like our first week getting ready to raid, and there's already news about the 5.1 PTR. You know
That
what I
was
mean?
right.
Like less than 2 weeks into the expansion, they already have the PTR up. So that proved it. And 5.3 and 5.4 easily, hands down, brought more content to the game than all of Burning Crusade, all of Wrath, all of Caddis. Maybe even all of those combined, honestly. Just cross realm zones, flex rating, proving grounds, challenge modes. These things are irrefutable. You cannot say that has not been worth the price, this expansion. So if that means even more in WoD, I'm happy to pay $60, maybe even $80. Honestly, the game is so boisterous at this point. I couldn't complain. If it was $1,000, I'd find a way to pay for it.
I'm not sure about
Yeah.
$1,000. I think there is a certain limitation to that, but let's just very quickly, ESO's collector's edition, $100. You get a model and all that for that. No, you're not paying for the same quality, in my opinion, that you are for Blizzard. I mean, you got to remember these games, like World of Warcraft itself, back in 2004, 2005. This game had been in development for 5 years. I was watching the Blizzard. What was it called? The Blizzard. It was like a recoup of the story so far with Blizzard Entertainment. It had Mike Morhaime, who's the CEO,
Blizzard
etc.
retrospective, right?
That was it. Yeah, it's a wonderful video. I actually thought it would be, fairly basic, but it is really, really good. It's like a documentary looking back at where they were. And, it showed that they were there for 5 years, working on World of Warcraft. They put more time into that game than they should have. They were essentially not getting paid for half of the time they were doing on this, and pushing back, everything else in their life. One of the guys on the team, I can't remember who, because my memory's like a goldfish, but he actually only had 18 days out of his entire work thing, like that he didn't count as work time, and that was for the birth of his child. 18 days.
Yeah, that's nuts.
That is nuts. But as you're paying for the quality. There's nothing wrong with the price. Some other things the previous week, we've had like the 90 boost stuff. People have obviously reacted. Mixed reactions from that. The purchase thing. We had a whole podcast on that, but the general consensus is, I think that people will pay for it because it's more of a pay for the time that you would play for, and the price of the expansion actually reflects that, so that people aren't buying multiples of the expansion. Otherwise, if a 90 service wasn't there, people would just buy multiple copies of World of Warcraft expansion, and just do it that way, and transfer the characters across. People will find a way.
The biggest thing that I've seen with that is a lot of people are, I don't know if you've done it, you probably not, but TOT LFR, which is the earliest, like the best LFR that they're qualified to do as soon as is a nightmare. And, like I said, we talked about this. This was a whole podcast for us. And I don't care, because if you're so worried about TOT LFR at this point, I hate to say it, but what are you doing in the video game right now? It's TOT LFR. Go get island gear and go do Siege. You know what I mean? So that was a good choice on Blizzard's part, making that eye level gear not good enough immediately for Siege. Because if so, then I could see, people complaining about Siege. But at this point, the 90, I know a few people who, a good friend of mine in real life, he's bought 3 characters already. And it's because he doesn't get to play the game often. He only gets to play the game, 3 times a week, maybe max. He works a full-time job, and he's got plenty of money to spend. So this is not a bad thing. Anybody who says it is, especially if you're going to try to make a complaint that it's ruining like LFRs and stuff, please keep your mouth shut, because it's so silly at this point. We'll talk about it in WoD. Maybe there'll be some stuff in WoD, but for now, it's irrelevant.
They even start you on a timeless isle, and that's the last point I'm going to say on that. Like, if they didn't want you to go on the timeless isle, get the gear to go in Siege, then it wouldn't have started you actually on the island. But anyway, let's move on. What we got? We had the Hearthstone actual release, which came with the Hearthsteed. Nice little achievement. We did an article on that. I told people how they can go do that. Go check that out. But I don't know. Hearthstone's not really a game I play much, but there's a lot of releases coming out, and that's really where we're going to lead on to what we predict for the release date, and probably beta release for WoD.
Yeah, and these two topics are pretty synergistic, all right? And I'll explain to you why. because the more we think about it, the more it's obvious. These are releases by the same company. You know what I mean? This is not like some other MMO competing, right? Blizzard does not want to outcompete their own products. So unfortunately, if, Diablo 3 comes out, like, depending on when this is released, like a week from now, basically, and then, Hearthstone is just now fully in beta, or fully in, like, it's not in beta any longer. It's completely out. That doesn't really affect anybody. But then Heroes of the Storm is a really big title for this company, you know what I mean? And the alpha just started as well. So what I think is going to happen is Diablo's going to come out, so that's 2 weeks, and then the following week is going to be Warlords of Draenor beta. It has to be. And then a few weeks into that, we'll see more stuff about Heroes. But like if Warlords of Draenor came out this Tuesday, who's going to play Diablo? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That they don't do that. They are not stupid. They're not going to outcompete their own product. So and with
you
that,
hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. And with that really, like, can solidify the actual release date as well, because we have to think in extrapolation. Like, if it comes out April 1st, the beta, then 6 months from then has to be, that's usually what we see. We see about 5 to 6, maybe 7 months of beta, and then we see an actual release. So I'm sticking with September, maybe late August. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. There's so many releases currently, like Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls. These games are actually, these are time sinks. I hate to say it, but like the main focus is the biggest game. And the biggest game of Blizzard Entertainment is World of Warcraft. It had over 10 million subs, So they're not going to put something out when, like the beta for Warlords of Draenor will come out when they haven't got other stuff to put out, or when it's ready, It's going to be in a month or so, here or there, like, I don't know. It's anyone's kind of guess, but it all sort of, I don't know, is a very, very big month already. Like you said with Heroes of a Storm, for example, that just went into technical alpha. People are going to be playing that for months upon months, When we get access, we'll be playing that. There's nothing else really to bide our time. As much as we want to play WoW and the same content, these little extra games, they are actually extra content for WoW players. Like we said, it's not a comparative, it's a different genre, but it's something to kill the time. And it's obvious to me that when there is a gap, when there isn't something coming out, is when WoD beta will start, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And honestly, if you look back through Dragon Soul, like, the last expansions, and that was it was poor. It was well designed in the beginning, but like the way that the Cataclysm ended was just really garbage. There was no, Diablo had came out and pretty much shut the game down. Like, I couldn't even get people to log on. But now, like, they didn't have Hearthstone and Heroes to buffer the game. You know what I mean? So when Diablo died down as well, people were just not playing Blizzard games. And that is, I feel like, something they are trying to reparate right now. And especially with, Heroes of the Storm, I feel like that game's going to make a splash. I'm putting my money on it right now. That is going to make a splash. Especially, I just actually released a video on the questing system in the game, which really shows me that they are trying to make it a competitive game, a game where you actually learn how to play while playing, instead of like League, where it's like, well, I have to go to a fucking guide system to even understand this character, you know what I mean? Or I have to go watch a YouTube video to see what skins are good and what are bad. It's just stupid stuff that Blizzard has learned from and is going to, do what they can to work on.
The time frame, like what you said about people playing Diablo 3 when Cataclysm, you were still doing raiding, it was a bit of a letdown. People cleared it, arguably faster than a lot of the other content, or it just wasn't that well designed, the entire raid, really. I mean, let's be honest. But I don't know, like, what were people playing other than Diablo 3? They were playing League of Legends. Sylar was playing a lot of League of Legends. He went on a whole tangent of not playing anything but League of Legends for months before he burnt himself out on it. And it's Blizzard's reaction going, well, these people are going to be playing these games. We're not going to compete with ourselves, so what should we do? We'll just put out a game that appeals to our audience, the World of Warcraft audience, who may not be wanting, who may want to look into these other games, but maybe want to be beginners into that Hearthstone Someone compared it to Magic the Gathering the other day. They're completely wrong, but in many ways they're kind of right, because it's a beginner's entry to that sort of game. It's a different genre with a nice, friendly take on it. And Blizzard has always been about user interface, always been about the one-click button to play with your friends. That was something they also said on a retrospective. Their mantra at Blizzard is to have one button that you press on Battle.net, and you can connect to all these different games and play with your friends. And that's what they're going to try and do. So instead of you having to go onto League of Legends and then realize that you're playing on EU West, where your friends live in North America and are playing on that, even Diablo 3 has made it so that you can now play globally with one account. If you go on your Battle.net now and go and click, look, if you've got Diablo 3 on your account, previously it said EU or North America, but now it says global region, which means that, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but on the same account, you purchase a game once, like I've done it recently, you can switch the region to North America and then level a character and play with your friends over there. It's a step forward towards a unified global gaming area. It's quite scary, honestly. It's a bit of a monopoly, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am. That's undisputable. That needs to happen in WoW. It needs to happen in every game. And now, especially, like, as you said, this is interesting. It just kind of popped in my mind as you were saying it. But think about this now. So Blizzard now has, without any question, the most successful MMORPG on the market. Okay.
Of all time,
ever, without question. Okay. The most successful trading card online experience, like collectible card game, like, Magic the Gathering, very, very successful, but more in the hard copy than on the internet.
I would say not successful, but more widely accessible.
Right. But I mean, like, on the internet right now, you know what I mean? Probably,
Everything is
at least,
awesome.
all right, so even if it's the second place, that's fine, okay? Then we go to Diablo, right? What competitors do they have? Torchlight, Path of Exile. Those are good games, right? I'm not saying they're bad, but realistically, Diablo's probably the front runner. So they have the best, quote-unquote, best dungeon crawler RPG, okay? And now what do they have? Maybe the best MOBA, you know what I mean? Like, what do you do when you're this company?
Battle Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's somewhere they haven't touched before, and it's somewhere that they can, well, you've got to remember as well, like, we're tying into the same universe. What did they do with StarCraft when they first made StarCraft? This was on the retrospective as well. This was an amazing video. I'm glad I watched it before the podcast. But when Samwise Didier was talking about the art style and the design and the inspiration for making StarCraft, they said, well, Warcraft made us a load of money. What can we do? Oh, let's make orcs in space. And that was actually the first thing they showed at like E3 and, well, it wasn't E3, but events like that at the time. They literally made Warcraft, but in space, and that was the very, very pre-alpha version. And people said they didn't like it, so they remade the art style, but it kept the same principles that he used in Warcraft, and in fact the same engine. The guy literally spent like a month in his attic designing new art for it, but it was essentially the same tile set. And then you look at Heroes of a Storm. Oh, what is it? It's heroes from every single other Blizzard game. It's that tie-in that's going to keep going and going and going with new IPs. They're trying to make new and, not necessarily original, but new and easy to make programs and software, gaming software on the side now. The reason Hearthstone was created is because originally Warcraft was the idea of taking 5 people in a room and making a game that could spread into being something ridiculously, addictive. And they achieved that. And it was a way of realizing that it still haven't lost that touch. So we're going to see a lot more games, I think, covering a lot of different markets as the years go on. And I wouldn't be surprised if they went back into racing games, because one of their first games, actually before, and it sort of turned into, was Rock and Roll Racing. But they actually did a racing game before that when they were Silicon and Synapse. But they remade that genre. That game actually won 2 awards at the time. They were a brand new company, Silicon and Synapse, and the year that game came out, it won 2 Game of the Year awards, and guess who they were up against? Sega. Konami.
Oh, did not know that.
Right? Nintendo. They were against the biggest names in the industry who had millions of dollars sat under their chair, and Blizzard, Silicon and Synapse had, like, debt hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that they had on credit cards. It's fantastic. You know, they're trying to touch all areas. So that's my prediction.
And I completely slipped my mind. Best RTS without question. StarCraft 2, no doubt, no competitor at this point. Unfortunately, you know, maybe they'll make a new Warcraft.
Esport in the game in the world, isn't it?
And maybe they'll make a new Warcraft, but I don't think there's any question about that. Now let's move on. There's one more thing that I want to talk about before we go into actual in-game stuff, but just here, this is just a straight out question. All right, people have been bitching about, you know, the release date. I saw like this crazy rant video about, you know, now it's not going to be out, yet they said it was going to be out. How do you feel? Do you feel cheated that this game, when we remember, we were all sat here at BlizzCon and we said, probably April. You know, we were literally thinking like April or May, and now it definitely does not look like summer. What do you think?
I kind of do feel a bit cheated, honestly, because their new mantra was like, oh, well, you know, there's two sides to this. They were like, oh, well, we're going to try and get more content out more frequently. But on the other side, saying you're going to, well, you know, they didn't confirm it as such, but their estimations were a lot, a lot different than the reality of a situation. And I think they're capable of doing that sort of time release, but I think they went down the process and realized that, crap, we actually have a lot of more, you know, extra work with this expansion because we've promised so much extra this time. And from MOP, you know, you've got to think of the process. How do you follow up MOP? You know, you've got to double or triple the content that's there during the game and end game. You've got to think of the features we haven't even talked about in previous podcasts or news and stuff that they said that they were going to do. Like, the questing system's going to have Timeless Isle style rewards and systems like that, new questing techniques. These are untested, you know, pieces of mechanics of the game that they're adding for this expansion. So, in many ways, yes, I feel cheated, but that's based on my greedy, you know, expectations as a gamer. But on the other side, I know that Blizzard only release a game or get it ready for beta when it's done, you know, when it's ready to be tested. Unlike a lot of games where, you know, you can pay money to get into an alpha and they show you something that is frankly terrible, and then they actually ask for feedback and then they don't like the fact they're getting feedback. Whereas Blizzard do not let their fans and their gamers see something until it's ready to be seen.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I'm just going to put this one on the table, and then we're done with this. The people who are arguing, all right, there's a lot of arguments saying, well, you know, they said that they were going to do an expansion like every year and a half. They said that. So you saying otherwise is a lie. I'm like, listen, when we sat down at BlizzCon, nobody said a word about when this expansion was coming out. Sure, maybe when MOP came out, they did say they wanted to get content out, but they got so much out in MOP that I don't care. As long as this expansion comes out this year, I'm satisfied. All right. But all the people saying, oh, you know, no, it was all just stipulation. Everybody made their own opinions, and big, you know, quote unquote, big websites like MMO Champion, like, oh yeah, we must know when this is coming out. It's coming out in April. Yeah. And it's not coming out in April. You know what I mean? So next time you think about this topic, guys, please just use common sense, all right? It's nobody's fault. Blizzard did not say that this was supposed to come out in the spring. They never said it. We all assumed it, I myself included, and if we are disappointed, it's our own fault. That's it. It's not Blizzard's fault. But anyway, let's move on to actual in-game stuff that we've learned within the recent weeks.
Oh, this is exciting stuff.
Here we go. This is the meat, right? So the first thing, if we're going to talk about these two things kind of in tandem, flying in Warlords has been brought up again. All right, now this was brought up because Afrasiabi, the Teagle and Four guy from Classic,
he's the lead world designer,
lead crazy guy from some crazy country. But anyway, he is not necessarily using the right words, okay? But what he tried to do was try to convey the fact that if people do actually end up liking no flying with the 6.0 patch, then it's not ever going to come back. So, first of all, how do you feel about hearing that news?
Get the lemons ready, because that one's definitely that sort of reaction. It's one of those things that you wanna very carefully, very subtly slip in, and I don't think he achieved that at all. It was as much as, well, here's a nail that's sticking out here, have a hammer, to the community. And people are going to react differently to it. Personally, flying is, let's talk about flying for a second. Let's say in Mists of Pandaria, you get to level 90, you go and learn the thing. Up until that point, you had to walk around or get flown around by your friends if you were, if you've got a load of friends to help you, which, you might have or might not have. But flying is really only used as a convenience tool. Only it takes away a certain aspect of World of Warcraft that they're trying to relive. People keep bringing up the Burning Crusade as this amazing time, or even vanilla as this amazing time, where in reality it wasn't. It was a time without these conveniences, where things cost a lot of money. People, even in TBC, you wouldn't see them flying around everywhere anyway, because a lot of them couldn't be bothered to do the dailies to afford the mounts, or the training for them, let alone be on Ashes or something, which was the only mount you could have that had 310 flying, that came with it. So, in many ways, I think they're trying to give a lot more immersion back into the game, but at the same time make it a better version of what they tried before. And I think that flying isn't necessarily something you need. It isn't something that you need to have, as long as the travel system in the game isn't terrible without it. As long as there aren't mountains that you have to go all the way around, or, the actual world design that Alex Afriazabi actually is the guy behind it. As long as he designs a world where you won't need flying, a world where there are other options, faster options, or at least the ability to get from point A to point B, like from the Shrine of Two Moons to the raid or whatever, from, like in Frostfire, whatever it is, to the actual raid, the Ogre raid. As long as that trip isn't laborious by ground mount, then I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, let's put this in perspective here, okay? The game can be altered, you know what I mean? So no flying is not necessarily a bad thing. There are some points, and this is not a flying podcast, so let's avoid going into it in depth. But one thing that I do want to talk about here, okay? In Classic, when you had 40-man raiding, so for our guild, right, 6:30 is invites, but so many people log on right at 7 because it's so close to the shrine and we can just summon them, and there's no real setup. But in 40-man raiding, without flying, there was setup. You had to be online at least 40 minutes ahead of time, because by the time all 40 invites went out, you had to be in there. There was no summons at the time. Like, summoning stones were unreliable and stuff like that. It wasn't feasible. So back then, you had to fly. You had to take a flight path and then get on your ground mount at the flight path and walk to the raid. All right, these are things that are not necessarily good, but in WoD, if it does happen, you know that they're going to remember these types of situations, and they're going to build better paths, better flight paths, and more convenient ways to get there. Flying is completely out of the question. It's not like, oh, if I don't have flying, I can't do this. No, because it's a fucking video game, and they will change it so you can still do this. You know what I mean? That's the point. But
what's not to say that in the shrine or whatever it would have, let's say you're in the Temple of Karabor as a Draenei or an Alliance character, and you want to go to the High Maul raid. What's not to say there'd be a fucking Arcane Mage NPC there, and it'd be a portal like there is to everywhere else in the world, and you just click a portal and it takes you to just outside the raid or something. That could be a simple option. It doesn't stop people from enjoying the world, because they can still walk around it, and they still need to get from A to B in certain other aspects of the game, but it doesn't affect the content at the top of the game, and I think that's integral to that, but at the same time building the immersion,
yeah,
and have a level.
I agree entirely. And some people are like adversely responding to this, so just gonna bring this up quick. There was like this thread that for some reason the blue guys got involved even in answering, but I made a video on this, so if you guys want to continue this discussion in this video, please do. But I asked people to tell me why they don't, like, why they're worried about flying being gone forever, and I got at least 40 comments, and 0 of them were bad. Like, every single person this is not an exaggeration either. 40 comments at least, and 40 people saying, I really want flying to go away. So I don't know. I mean, what are people talking about? This guy in this thread saying like just dumb stuff that is not real. If you are worried about flying in this video game, you are not doing end game. Nothing at end game happens on a flying mount. Zero things. You understand that? Just flying around in the world. That's the only reason.
It's literally convenience.
Yeah, that's it.
And,
You don't raid. You don't do arena. You don't do battlegrounds. You don't do, challenge modes. You don't do anything on a flying mount. All right. So let's just dispel that right now. Moving on.
One of the things that people complain about, which I could have somewhat maybe agreed with, was that a lot of the time, like if they're going to restrict ground mounts, then there aren't actually that many cool ground mount models. And then our good friend Corey Stockton at Blizzard pops up and goes, "Hey guys, yeah, we were having a think. We've decided that any mount can be a ground mount in WoD." Boom.
Yeah,
Problem
C-Stock
fixed.
coming through again. Big Stockton. He's putting big plays on the deck, man. It's just like when we did the podcast about the 90 boost. Immediately they respond to all the negative stuff. So what do you do about that? I don't know, but
It's community reaction.
Yeah.
You see something negative like that and you twist it into a positive instantly, and that's the Blizzard team.
Well, speaking of the Blizzard team, now we're talking about Mr. Chris G. Robinson, all right? He's working on the Draenei, which we did learn recently. Cannot wait to see the Draenei model. And with that, we were also a bit of a teaser. We got the Wish You Were Here, the character animations, and the new models working in a real-world situation. We saw a bit more of an extrapolation on exactly how that's going to look. What'd you think about that trailer and then, the upcoming stuff graphically?
Being an amateur machinimator myself on certain things, I've done some pretty terrible videos with you. You've been a ghost voice actor. Well, you have actually technically a guest voice actor on a few of them as well. Like being from that side of it, from a creative side of point, this is what we want on that side of it, of the fan side. We want to create stuff, and a lot of the tools for that were very, very, very weak. We had very basic stuff. The new character models and the animations we've seen, and I don't know if you've seen this video. If you haven't, we'll definitely put a link to this in the description or wherever on the podcast, wherever you're looking at, on the article as well, to go and watch this. But it was for the announcement for the level 90 character boost coming out, and we actually saw this previously because it was leaked. It was an unlisted video that someone found, but when it came out, it basically showed the new gnome male model, a guy he didn't say anything in it, typical machinimation stuff, no voice acting, just grunts and but he interacted with a mailbox, and then he got this message, and then he was writing on this paper, and then he suddenly gets boosted to 90 after signing the paper. But the animations and like his reactions and things, it was a whole new game. You have to remember, like, that is going to be available in Model Viewer. These are features that we're going to see in the game, let alone from a creative side like myself. But, like, when you're in game, what's the thing that looks the worst now? Like, you look in MOP, beautiful scenery, you've got the new water effects if you're playing on Ultra, you've got your anti-aliasing, you've got all of this lovely, cartoony, like, real Warcraft beauty, sun shafts and weather effects and all that, and then you've got these horrible stubby orcs and dwarfs with clasped fists that don't have fingers that bend and stuff, and then suddenly bam, you've got this example that was made by someone on the in Blizzard art team, so probably not that experience with those tools, who knows, but and they made this sort of machinimation. And it was just an example of, wow, this is seriously sort of like the animation quality we're going to see from all of the character models. Like, I don't know how many other people reacted this way, but I was like, holy crap, I'm actually going to look at my character more, because at the minute I play a druid, I play my troll, and she's ugly as hell, man. I don't know how you feel about this, but it's incredible.
I agree. I'm completely on the same page. And I'm going to say this because that trailer was well made. And as you just alluded to, it featured stuff that people don't necessarily realize. Like, that was animations. You know what I mean? We got to see the game, basically. And it didn't need to be it didn't, we don't need a trailer like that. Who that's not normal companies don't do that. That is something that Blizzard gave to us as a present, and I love them for that. That is really cool. I'm so excited about the new animation, so excited about the new models, super excited to see the Draenei. The Draenei could be really, really well done if they did, especially considering Draenei and Blood Elf are two of the newer ones, not necessarily the newest, but they're still in the works. So that's it for that, at least. I can't, for now, we'll see where it goes, but let's move on and talk about the actual, some real in-game stuff that I am pretty passionate about. I think you are as well. Now, recently we discovered, I guess this was already leaked, but we got some confirmation on a lot of racial changes. Okay, and the goal, it looks like from Blizzard's end, is not necessarily to equate them, but to make them all relevant. You know what I mean? Especially the best example I could think of here is the Tauren and the Night Elf ones. These were just, they were so good as a tank in Classic. Having 2% dodge as a Night Elf, mandatory for warrior tanks in Classic and BC. And then on the Horde side, having the extra, like the ton of health from the Tauren, mandatory, straight out mandatory. But when Wrath, even Kata, the stats inflated so much, and now Mob, it's just the number of health that you gain as a Tauren is useless. It's terrible. So these things are good, well redone concepts. How do you feel about like some of the racial things you've learned, Meoni?
Well, the racials in this game have always been something that people pick, not based on, like actually wanting to play that particular character. The creative aspect of creating a character, aside from being on an RP level, shouldn't just be from a mechanical perspective, in my opinion. And I feel that all the way through WoW, we've had some fairly, unbalanced racials here and there, and they've balanced them along the way. But, obviously as a troll druid, I went for berserking, massive bonus, or, you can play as an orc for a warlock to get, better DPS, It's only 1 or 2%, but at the end of the day, that 1 or 2% is going to push the top echelon to do it, They're always going to do it. So I feel that some changes were needed, and I feel it brings it down, to earth a bit and makes it a little bit more fun. One of the racial changes to the Night Elves, this is where I really need a paper listing the racial changes. If I was professional, I would have done that. But I believe one of the things is, crit by day,
and haste by night, something like that.
And depending, and we're not sure how that's going to work, but presumably the time of day in game, like server time. So if you raid in the day, you're going to get crit, for example. And if you're going to get raid in the night as a night elf, you're going to get haste bonuses. And I'm going to be interested to see where that borderline, flops off. Most people raid, at least on EU, 5 to 6 to 7 p.m. sort of start time, up to 10, 11, or 12 end time for a raid. 4 hours of raiding is about the norm these days. 3 to 4 hours at those sort of times, weekdays or weekends. Most people raid that. So what time does day turn to night for that racial? Like, is that going to be something that people metagame? Because a lot of the other racials don't seem to be that serious, but this one maybe could be.
I agree, honestly, and the morning thing as well. Like, when officially is it morning in World of Warcraft? I don't know. I honestly don't. But I think the big thing there is that you have to think about guilds, right? So they're saying that crit and haste now for resto druids or something like that, they're going to be equatable stats, and I respect that. If that's the case, that's really cool. A really cool iteration of what a racial could be. But think about this, right? You're in the middle of a raid. Literally, you're about to kill a boss, and the racial changes on you mid-fight.
How does that work?
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, this sounds more like a classic racial than some of the racials we are discarding here. And I don't know if they were thinking this through, because if that actually happens, like in the middle of a fight, you lose some haste or something like that, you're going to feel that. That is going to change your playstyle. You know what I mean? A little bit, not a lot. But either way, I'm pretty excited. The Blood Elf one, it's godlike. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see the Blood Elf. And now especially they boosted Tauren. So Holy Paladin, you can go Tauren now. there's any of these, if they all stay the way
They're
they
all
are,
utility, aren't they?
uh-huh.
Mostly.
Is there any that maybe as a druid or a warlock that you liked
Aside
you
from
liked a
Night
lot?
Elf, not really.
Right.
Like, they all seem to be viable options, in my opinion. Like, it seems fairly balanced. One thing I do want to bring up, really, though, is that these racial changes. Now, a friend of mine and a streamer, he actually posted a screenshot of now I think it was in way before, was it sometime before December? There was a leak that came up on MMO Champions news saying that they went, oh god, look, we found the racial changes for Warlords of Draenor, and on that, basically that Night Elf thing was there, and pretty much every single one of these racial changes was actually on that sheet. So I'm wondering if these are set in stone, but they had these, like, somebody had this information in December, way before, before BlizzCon, and way before after it, and I'm wondering how many of them are actually going to stay the same way, or if they're like, well, this is not the final version, and they have other plans that maybe they fed us old information to see our reaction. I don't know, but
We shall see. There is no question about that. I'm excited, especially racial changes, how they affect different type of class combinations, because as Mione said, you should want to play a class for its looks, and now with the new models, that is certainly, I'd imagine a lot of people will switch because of that. But, the troll racial especially, it was just way too good for any DPS in TOT. Like 3 double dipping racials on one race is just, it's too good. The beast slaying, berserking.
it was great for healers
those,
as well.
yeah, those are just too much. So I'm glad to see them readjust it. Really excited. I think Dwarf gets a nice leg up. Crit damage, crit healing, really good for a lot of healers. Also, what was the other one? There was, I guess, Torn. It's a good example. Oh, Draenei. Draenei is probably the biggest step up, because now with the hit thing gone, that was pretty much why anybody would pick Draenei as alliance. But now that the heal is based on your own health, Draenei tanks. These guys are gonna be solid. That's like having Eternal Flame, even if you're not like a paladin. That could help you out, but. Anyway, the racial changes are still perhaps a work in progress. So let's talk about something that does seem to be, sticking. They're sticking with their guns on this one, and that's the healing changes. Now, both of us play healer. Mione's played Resto Druid. I played Holy Paladin. I've tried out a lot of different healing specs. I feel like I play them all quite well. And the thing they're talking about here, basically removing a lot of instant cast heals and then adjusting, some other heals and cooldowns and stuff like that. So they have either a cast time or they're just flat out different. Now, immediately, okay, stop the presses here. Think about the abilities that both of our classes just got gibbed on. You know what I mean? Wild growth on a cast time?
Yeah.
Is that a joke? And then, what? Eternal Flame on a cast time? What video game are these guys playing? You don't cast that spell on a cast time. It's just useless.
Welcome to vanilla.
It does nothing now.
Like, I don't know. I saw that. I think I read this right, unless they've changed it. But rejuve is still instant, which thank God for that.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that was
luckily.
necessary. I was like,
That wasn't,
I was like, holy shit, time to re-roll if that changes. But wild growth, like, that's a convenience heal. Like, thanks Blizzard, we've lost that now. Like, I'm not gonna go and cast that when I can cast something else that does twice the healing. To several more people. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of things that need to be tested, and I need to get into Ward to the beta to be able to do this. It's all well and good as sitting here and go, oh, this doesn't work, but what are they going to do to the other abilities? Like, I don't know, they're going to shorten cooldowns on those. Nothing's set in stone, but there's definitely some interesting aspects of that I both like and am terrified of. I mean, your class, for example, this is going to affect you pretty big, right?
Dude, it is just silly, like sitting here thinking about having this a freaking cast time on Word of Glory, especially if you don't have Eternal Flame. It's just like, what game? I could see Light of Dawn. All right, let's put this in perspective. Light of Dawn is a really strong heal for how much it does not use mana. It only uses holy power, and with the divine, whatever the DP is what I always call it, proc. You can get like 3 or 4 back to back, you know what I mean, that don't consume holy power. So that is really good. I do not mind that. No, do not mind it. But Word of Glory is it's terrible. It's horrible. Eternal Flame is the only option for that spell, and it was such a good option because it also applied the mastery. They nerfed it, doesn't apply the mastery anymore. Now it's just like a 28-second hot. Why would I cast that? Who is that going to get cast on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're trying to limit the movement that healers have in Arena, and once again, they are gutting stuff that should be core for PvE. Like Wild Growth, you know what I mean? These are the two biggest examples. Wild Growth is a heal that when AoE damage happens, you spread it immediately.
Yeah.
You put it out immediately. Now you have to be like, oh, well, I guess I better wait. Okay, 1.5 second cast. All right, here comes the damage. Here comes the damage. Okay, I cast it. That's dumb. That doesn't sound fun.
No, I don't know. We could make an entire podcast on basically healing and how it's, well, or DPS or tanking even, and how PvP is as effed it in the A for PvE. You know, like, that isn't a whole new topic on its own. But I don't know, like, for your, Word of Glory, I mean, I don't know.
Word of Not Glory is what it's going to be called now. Word of Sad.
It was.
I mean, let's put this in
just
perspective
went and made it even less useful.
Yeah, let's put this in perspective, right? They can change whatever they want. They can make Word of Glory like land hands, and then surely I'm going to cast it. But for now, if it happened today, that spell is gone. It's no longer a viable spell. You would never ever use it.
What I'm thinking of here is, right, Vanilla had some stupid cast times and stupid spells. TBC homogenized a lot of them, added some cast times to some to make them balanced, and sometimes they just threw away the rest of them, okay, some of the other abilities. Wrath of the Lich King decimated my Warlock to the point where I have 4 buttons instead of 12 to put dots on as an Affliction, as an Affliction Warlock. Fine, okay, that made the class a lot more enjoyable to play with some skill rather than just pressing 12 buttons in succession and keeping those dots up. That's fine, okay. But then, it's almost like we're going backwards. It's almost like, well, yeah, maybe the glory days of vanilla, maybe we want some of those things. I just feel like they're bringing problems in with these ideas that they're going to have to fix in the next expansion. And it's just a circle of putting something in that's stupid and then taking it out later. Word of Glory is going to get removed. You know for a fact it's either going to get removed or changed from there.
Well, the issue is that tier, if it stands, like nobody's going to use Eternal Flame, the Eternal Flame modifier for Word of Glory. They're going to use Sacred Shield, right? That's the name of it. They're going to use Sacred Shield instead because that's still going to be instant, and now it's going to be an absorb. Whereas, like, the best strength for Eternal Flame right now, maybe I'm a noob, maybe I'm missing something, but the best strength for that is spreading it to all the tanks and getting a few up before the pull. And then, from there on in 25-man rating, you don't touch it because the only time I ever use it in 25-man rating is when I'm on the move. That's it. Because it doesn't do anything. It's terrible. It's a 28-second hot that gets overridden by a druid's hot or a priest's hot easily.
Overtime.
It's garbage. You know what I mean? So it's too long, first of all, and second of all, it does nothing, especially now that without the mastery. It's just on the tanks, but I don't know. Like I said, this can be changed. They'll fix it. I'm confident in that, but I kind of agree with you. It's honestly, unfortunately, it's been a cycle where PvP affects this. Let's make this change. Oops, this change is terrible. Let's take that change out 2 months later. You know what I mean? So
like,
we'll see.
Some other games have addressed this by adding, say for instance, a 4th spec, and that spec being the PvP spec. But at the same time, they don't want to do that sort of stuff because they believe that anybody should be able to choose utility, and any specialization should be viable in both PvE and PvP. It's obviously not the case, and Blizzard need to kind of wake up a little bit for that. Because there are always going to be the people at the top of certain specs, and there's always going to be people who just shouldn't enter, like a tank in Arena. What? Come on, that's not going to happen. But there are certain, I don't know, and then the other side of me makes it feel like they should just add a separate section to the game for PvP, so that the PvE stuff is on separate time as separate cooldowns, even if they use the same abilities, like. Have the time, like the tooltips just change when you're in a PvP situation. I don't know how viable or mechanically possible that is, but that just seems the only answer to that. Otherwise, we're just going to end up back and forth and back and forth. And at the end of the day, like, oh well, we can't do this in PvE, so one bloke on the design team goes, yeah, we'll buff that, and then the PvP guys go, oh no, now this is like overpowered, and then it needs a nerf. So then you put a nerf in. it's like a tug of war between people inside Blizzard, and I think they need to start talking to each other and realize that they need to separate it down the middle completely. So it'll be interesting to see where PvP goes in Warlords of Draenor. They're already starting to make plans for more accessible arena and stuff like that. So perhaps that will and separate that a bit with like arena only gear. Maybe that will go further, perhaps, more because at the end of the day, if they did make separate sections of the game just for PvP and PvE, it would actually make both situations, both scenarios, so much better. It really would. It'd make them completely tuned to their actual places. So, I'm no designer, but if that was possible, black and white, I would choose to do it.
I agree. And in fact, I actually asked Samkos about this topic, and do you know what he said?
It's shit.
I don't like it. So yeah, I don't know, but that's everything. I think we've gone through the gambit. There's been a lot of news. A lot of new stuff is also coming out as well. So if you guys want to discuss any of these topics, please let us know. But do you have any other closing remarks that maybe wrap up any of these?
Well, we had Q&A last time. We actually did podcast live last time. We're gonna try and do that stuff again live in the future when Sila's on board, because obviously our stream quality is just going to be garbage in comparison. Nobody'd want to watch that anyway. But we're trying to get forums active, guys, so like these topics that we're talking about, we're going to have threads on there associated with each of these little topics. Please go on there, let us know what you think. We're going to use your stuff in Q&A for the following podcasts. I really want to get what you have to say on this podcast. This is your podcast. This isn't our podcast. This is the Stratics, this is the WoW Stratics community. This is you guys. This is now you, the listener. You need to go on there. You need to say, right, well, I think Metro's talking crap. I think, Word of Glory is a fine ability, and this is why, Do that, please. We encourage you to engage us, because we're not going to shut you down. We're not just going to ban you like certain other sites. Please come and do that. But as regards to the topics, Warlords of Draenor, please be soon. Fingers crossed, getting into the beta. We need that. Stay focused for that on wow.stratics.com. And you can find me on youtube.com/AceGamesTV. A bit slacky. Been writing a lot more articles than I have YouTube video creation. Really, I don't know. We'll see how that goes, but WOD's really going to unlock that for me. There's not really much content to feature, and my Let's Play ideas are just, it's effort. So we'll see if I even continue with that or not. What about you, Metro?
Yeah, I mean, same deal. Check it out, Ace Games, if you want to see some video. Otherwise, it's all about WoW Stratics for the written. And I'm going to say this, echo what he said, the forums, guys. All right, please, if you listen to this, I'm begging you. I'm begging you on my knees, crying about it, all right? Go to the forums. We want to make this forum a real deal. So when WoD comes out, people can see like, damn, look at this guy, man. This dude's got like the coolest voice ever. That Metro dude, he's probably got the best opinions I've ever heard. Samco's coolest accent. This is great. Let's get on board and talk to these dudes. And when WoD comes out, it's going to explode. But for now, we're struggling to get people to go. I've literally been paying homeless people to go on the forums, and most of them don't even show up. So that's how sad this is.
Absolutely. And also, there's even more reason to go on there as well. Recently, we I say recently, but we did it previously. We gave away some stuff before. We've done events every few weeks. There's actually a new function that we're going to explain very briefly here, which is sites with benefits, which is like a blue border thing. When you go on WoW Stratics, you can create an account on the forums, and you can go on there, and you can basically do some daily stuff like visit the forum daily, post a thread. There'll be lots of other stuff like tweeting out our podcast, for example. That might be one. There'll be all sorts of that stuff. So the more you get engaged in our community, the more we're going to reward you and give give back to the people that are giving us the content for this stuff, basically. So, check it out. Currently, we're giving away in the sites with benefits for this month. Sila is generously putting this together, and spearheading it, but we as a team are giving away a digital collector's edition of Warlords of Draenor. Now, we talked about the price of this. If you think that this is an expensive game, there's your answer. This is a free game. All you have to do is go on this site each day of your life for 1 month, and go and press tweet and post something and just talk to people who want to be talked to about the things that we love, the same games that we all enjoy playing, and you can have yourself a free game. Simple as that. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Metro, but
yeah, no, that's it. If you guys want it, go get it, man. It's easy to do. Sites with benefits, great program. That's it.
That's pretty much it. So until next time, we will be doing this bi-weekly. We slipped up a couple of times on day releases behind the scenes here, but it should not really be too much of a thing when this goes out. It should be out way before, obviously, the next one.
This should easily be out before the summer.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Absolutely, I would agree.
Okay.
At least before the next expansion. So
right, exactly.
So badger Siler about that as well. If this is not up in a timely manner. But yeah, from me, Mione, and you, Metro.
That's me.
Goodbye.
See ya.
See you in 2 weeks.
The WoW Stratics Podcast, the official voice of a World of Warcraft Stratics fan site, wow.stratics.com.